All right. So I guess now you understand what the plan was.
Absolutely. At Colts Law, we talk Indianapolis Colts football.
We're going to stick to what we know, fundamentals and technique, 1% better every day.
What's going on, Colts Nation? I'm Lawrence Owen. With me, as usual, is my boy, Loyalist. And we are here with those of you that are already in the chat, getting ready to discuss a little topic that came up yesterday. Deebo Samuel, if you haven't heard, has already posted a trade request to the San Francisco 49ers. Now, there's multiple reasons that has been reported on why he flat out wants to leave the 49ers. However, it has been also reported that the Indianapolis Colts, along with a couple other teams, have already called the 49ers in wanting to know what would it take for them to trade Deebo Samuel. Now, what we're here to talk about is what would it cost the Indianapolis Colts to acquire a wide receiver, Deebo Samuel, and would it be worth it? Would it be worth it? Now, a couple of those things for the reasons why Deebo asked to leave. First off, there are multiple reports, that he just don't want to play in San Francisco no more. Mm-hmm. Geography-wise, he doesn't want to be on the West Coast. Okay, well, I mean, geography-wise then, I guess the New York Jets would be the prime freaking location for him, right? But there are other reasons as well. Now, some have brought up money issues. Deebo himself came out and said that money's not really the issue here, right? Mm-hmm. That it's not the contract. They could offer him plenty of money and it would not be enough to keep him there. Why? Because of the simple fact Deebo doesn't want to run the football behind the line of scrimmage no more. He doesn't want to take the football from the running back position and run the football. And because, as we all know, running backs' shelf life is a little bit shorter than what a wide receiver shelf life is, right? So what are your thoughts? Loyalist, first off, my question to you is, would he have to run the football at all with the Indianapolis Colts?
I mean, short of maybe like your jet sweeps or something, you know, how you just using your receiver to keep them off guard. But I mean, no, we got Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines. And to be honest with you, you know, Nyheim Hines can do all the jet sweeps. So, Deebo, as far as that goes, man, you want to be just receiver? We got a home for you.
Absolutely. Now, also, when it comes to that situation, we talked about, you know, he wants to be a wide receiver. Geography-wise, is Indiana on the West Coast? I haven't looked at the map lately. I think we're east of the Mississippi. I'm not 100%, but I'm fairly certain we're east of the Mississippi. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, he is from South Carolina, or that's, you know, that general vicinity. I may be mistaken, but I think I read somewhere about that, and that's kind of an area that he would like to go. Now, we don't have that kind of weather here. I'm sorry, but we do have an indoor stadium. Okay. So it could be like that weather if you want it. All Ursay would have to go is hit hot and humid, you know, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. And if he's worried about getting homesick, Indiana is very centralized. You can get to home within a couple hours.
Absolutely. I mean, we all do it, right? Winter time comes around, we're like, Florida, you're looking pretty good this time of year. We'll be there in a couple hours, you know. Hi, Epcot. But or, you know, multiple other places. You want to get over to New York and visit some friends over there in New York, you know. I mean, it's just a couple hour drive. There is nothing short of the West Coast that is more than a couple hours drive from Indiana. Why is that? Well, that shouldn't matter to you because you don't want to be on the West Coast, so it doesn't matter, right? Now, a lot of people want to talk about the DeForest Buckner trade and how, well, Ballard gave up, you know, the 13th overall pick for
Yeah.
for DeForest Buckner, and then paid him, top defensive line money. Well, why wouldn't he do that for Deebo Samuel? Well, first off, as much as I love Deebo Samuel is not the number 2 or number 3 wide receiver in the NFL. Okay. Love Deebo. But DeForest Buckner is in a position of his position that, is that 2 or 3 of his position in the entire NFL. I mean, there's one guy ahead of him, clearly, right? In Aaron Donald. And then he's tied with like maybe 2 others for being second, in my opinion, anyhow. And he was well worth that money and well worth that trade. And you just weren't going to get a guy like that at the 13th pick. Whereas, in my opinion, with Deebo Samuel, he's a second round pick. You're getting guys that are producing like Deebo Samuel from the second round, left and right, over the last few years. You're seeing it all over the place. I don't think anyone is going to give a first round pick for Deebo Samuel. I think, in my opinion, the thing that could possibly get Deebo Samuel is the fact that Ballard has a ton of very good players on this roster. Very, very good players. And he's got some upper mid-round picks that he could tack onto that if he wanted to get a player like that. What are your thoughts on about what it would take to trade for?
Well, and I like where you're at, but I've also heard a lot of talk about how San Francisco is looking at this situation, and they're looking at the Tyreek Hill, and they're like, the Tyreek Hill is our starting point. And I'm like, if that's where they're at, and to your point, if you don't think that any team's going to give up even a first round draft pick, I would say that's a rather large chasm that they have to try to narrow down and stuff before anything can be talked about. So, like I said, I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard enough from other teams as far as on this point. You hear the fan base, and I mean, they're willing to give away anything and everything for that, receiver right now, and then worry about the rest later. But, fortunately, the fans aren't the ones making those decisions. It's the GMs who have to deal with it.
Yeah, I could see a first round pick, but it would be late. It'd be like 25 plus, because let's face it, there are multiple very, very good wide receivers that are almost can't miss guys that's going to go in the first round in this draft, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to get them young. And you're not going to have to pay them for the next 4 years, unlike Deebo, who's going to need an extension like this year or the year after, right? You're going to have to pay Deebo shortly. Whereas odds are you're probably going to get yourself a cheap, very, very good wide receiver if you've got a top 20 pick in this year's draft. But in my opinion, also, if you've got a decent player that San Francisco needs, and maybe throw in an upper mid round, second, third, fourth round pick or something to go with that player, then you're looking at a possible trade. Now, there is no way that someone's going to give away their entire draft for Deebo Samuel. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. The trade that Miami Dolphins did is stupid. Okay. And 99, I'm just telling you my opinion. It was the dumbest trade. With the extension, it was the dumbest move I've ever seen a team make in my entire life. Okay. Mm-hmm. That was worse than when Mike Ditka says, I'll give away all my draft picks for this running back. Right. You remember that way back in the day?
Ricky Williams.
Yeah, for Ricky Williams. Okay. Because at least when he was doing that, he was going after what he thought was a surefire running back, and it was coming straight out of the draft.
Yes.
Whereas Tyreek Hill's at the end of his career, okay? Nearing the end of his career. Dumbest move in NFL history. I think it tops the Colts giving away a first-round pick for Trent Richardson. Yeah. I really do, because of the long-term effects that it's going to have on Miami.
Yeah, and see, and I'm wondering, because you look at the market, the wide receiver market this year in free agents. I mean, you could sit there and, Kirk contract, the Adams. There was a lot of just massive numbers being thrown around to these guys. And I don't know that that's where the Colts are, and I don't understand it. And we said this a few weeks ago. I don't understand it when you see what the draft has been producing. I mean, you got the Jamar Chases and stuff that are coming into the league and making their the DK Metcalf, making their presence being felt. And to your point, it's on a much cheaper contract. You've got them for 4 years, and you can help indoctrinate them into your culture and the way you like to do it and stuff. And I love Deebo Samuel. I'm not slighting him. I mean, I would love to see him in a Colts uniform. But there again, you look at the Colts situation with, I don't want to give up any draft capital from 23 or 24 because we're going to need that to find other solutions, long-term solutions, probably at the quarterback position and others.
Absolutely. Now, the reason San Francisco wants a lot is because Deebo does a lot. Now, if Deebo's never don't want to run the football, then they're kind of in a problem, right? One issue, a certain Le'Veon Bell came to Twitter and was talking, hey, you know what? They don't want to bend to you. Sit the year out like I did. Someone will take you up next year. Someone will pick you up next year and play you the way you want to play. And you'll get paid doing it. And I believe that. I believe that's something that Deebo legitimately can do, because if he doesn't want to run the football nearly as much, he doesn't have to. I mean, he is his own guy, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, he's taking a lot of heat because he doesn't want to do it, but let's face it, he was a wide receiver, not a running back. There's a reason why he wants to be a wide receiver, and I understand that the punishment running backs take can be severe, especially over the long term.
Yeah,
one good.
I mean, as a wide receiver, he's looking at two contract, cycles in his career, maybe three. As running back, I mean, we see it all the time. It's really hard for these guys to get that second, let alone the third contract.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't get a Adrian Peterson or a Frank Gore very often. Those are very rare running backs. Now, the Colts do have a guy that I think would fit very, very well in with the San Francisco 49ers, to be a guy that could be tacked on with an extra pick. Now, I don't know how a lot of you fans will like this, but Nyheim Hines is that guy. San Francisco wants a guy who will run the football and play wide receiver. Well, Nyheim Hines can do that. Can he do it as well as Deebo Samuel? I'm not going to say he can or he can't, because I haven't seen him in that style of offense, right?
Yeah.
But he has proven that he can run the football between the tackles and play very, very good football out of the backfield or as wide receiver. So you would be filling that position with a guy who is willing to play both positions and then maybe get a draft pick on top of it in exchange for Deebo Samuel. So, I do understand that Deebo is looking for his extension. He is wanting that $20+ million extension, and deservedly so after the year he had last year, right? In my opinion, I think Deebo is definitely, deserving of top 10 wide receiver money, and that is your $20+ million a year. So, another situation, I think Deebo fits the Indianapolis Colts incredibly well because we already have our 50-50 guy. Yeah. We want that guy who's going to catch the short pass and get the yak yards after, right? And that's Deebo. That's what Deebo does. He will take a screen or a slant or a dig route or something of that nature and turn it into mega yards. And that's what the Colts have been lacking, that we've been wanting from guys like Paris Campbell and Nyheim Hines, right?
Yeah.
But it just hasn't been happening, mainly because Hines hasn't gotten the targets and because Paris just ain't been able to stay on the field. So Deebo would be filling that role for the Colts. And as for San Francisco, if they make that trade or are interested, they would get a guy who would do exactly what they want to do in their scheme.
Yeah. And I mean, could you imagine, okay, if this was to happen, now your starting receivers would be MPJ, Paris Campbell, and Deebo Samuel. And I'm putting Paris Campbell on there because he ain't hurt yet. So, we can count him in that equation. But, and then even if you do lose the Paris Campbell from that equation or whatever, having Deebo there, having that like you said, the guy that can go across the middle of the field, the guy that can stretch the field, get the yards after catch type stuff. I'm not saying that they're the same receiver, but it would look really nice. And I would have to imagine from a defensive standpoint, it would be extremely difficult to take these three receivers who are so interchangeable and stuff and trying to figure out how to defend them and which guy do you take first? Do you take MPJ? Do you take Deebo Samuel? And it'd be interesting. You sit there and you have arguably two guys that could be a, quote, wide receiver one-ish, wide receiver two talent.
Absolutely. Now, if the Colts traded Nyheim Hines, remember, he just signed this extension, right? 3 years, $18 million, $12 million guaranteed. Now, some of that guaranteed money already dropped last year. If they traded him right now, the Colts would eat about $7.5 million in dead cap. So just FYI, let you know that. However, they would still free up $11 million. So that they would free up $11 million bucks. They would be able to do some stuff long term, maybe get that extension for Deebo if it was needed. But I like Hines. So honestly, I'm okay going either way. If the Colts decided to, trade Hines and get Deebo, I'm okay with that. If they decided, you know what, we have our own Deebo, just in a different way, more finesse than power, right? In Hines, then I'm okay with that as well. The question is Ballard, would Ballard even be willing to do that? I mean, we've seen him prefer or, offer up big trade, for people. I mean, he gave up a first and a third for Wentz, first and a third. Gave up a mid-round first-round pick for DeForest Buckner. So he can do that. Yeah. He's given up trades, Rocky Sin, straight up man for man for Yannick. He loves his trades to try to build that perfect team. Do you think Ballard would be that guy that would be like, you know what? This could be the move that finally puts this team completely over the top. Let's go make it.
Well, for me personally, I mean, and I don't know if you remember when we were talking about re-signing Nyheim Hines. It was like, he's a running back. You don't want to re-sign, but I liked what Nyheim presents to our offense. I like how he makes us so diversified. Now, if Deebo is not wanting to, do anything but wide receiver, you're losing that aspect of the game. Now, I understand it's a lot easier to go in the draft and find another running back that can do the part of Nyheim Hines and stuff. But I guess what my point is would you still be as dynamic with Deebo? Okay. And this is not replacing Nyheim, but would you be as dynamic of an offense with Deebo in there if you take Nyheim out of the equation? Because honestly, the guy can run the ball. He can go out into the flat. He can run any of the wide receiver routes. He really opens up the playbook, I think, for Coach Reich. And that I'm more interested in where Coach Reich would be at on this type of situation. Mm-hmm. Would that limit his offense more than he would want it to?
That is an interesting question. Well, I think we pretty much touched everywhere. Well, we'll get to the chat in just a moment, but real quick, I just want to say thank you, all 30 plus of you that's sitting here watching this, and those of you that are in the chat. Please smash that like button before you forget. That way it helps with our analytics. Appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed, and hit the notification bell so that you are notified next time we go live or upload a video. And a quick special shout out to one and only JDW Sports Talk Show. Yes, I see you in here. He just went out and used the link in the description to buy one of the Colts Law t-shirts. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate you. The link is in the description for my my shop, right? It's really awesome. There's a lot of great links that are in there that you could use. Obviously, the Patreon, which we will be going live at 8:00. Patreon only. It's only $5 a month. Every Thursday, 8:00. Lasts until God only knows when. Sometimes 2 a.m. You can stay as long as you want. But hey, and don't forget also lots of other things. If you want to donate to the channel, just for the cause, to help the cause, you can use the link at the top of the description of the video to do that as well. Yes, JDW says, have to support the fam. Well, you know, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to get in here to the chat. I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top because that's what I do. And first off, John Davis is like, why? Well, he typed that in before we even went live. I saw it.
Yeah.
It's all good. And I understand his thought process on that. You know, I get it. Wyatt says the cost in assets and money is unlike Ballard. I can't see it. Like I said, I've seen him do assets and money to get someone. I remember first round pick plus $21 million a year for Buckner, you know, but that was a position of need that he really wanted to fill. Well, right now, I don't know. I don't know what their thought process is right now. Zach says that he'd be satisfied giving up next year's first round pick for I'm assuming he means Deebo. But you know what? Sure, next year's first round pick will be the 32nd pick in the draft. That'll be fine.
Question is if you give that up, and what, even if Matt Ryan produces at a high level, how are you going to get in position to get a quarterback? You know, if you give up a first round asset, that pretty much kicks that can down the road another year, you know, until 23. And that's just, like I said, I mean, this is no slight to Matt Ryan. I think he's got 3 or 4 good years in him. But there again, if you want to have those multiple shots at the dartboard, I just don't want to be giving up a lot of assets whenever your quarterback's 37, 38 years old.
I hear you. Toxic said, is Deebo looking for a mega bag? Well, he's looking to get paid, and he's up for getting paid. I mean, this is his 3rd season, 4th season. I can't remember. Either way, it's time for him to get paid. He was a 2nd round pick, and he's producing well above 2nd round pick.
And that's another thing. I'm not even sure where I'm at personally, and I would love to know where Ballard is. You know, does he pay a wide receiver 20 plus 25 million a year? I mean, because we've seen it, you know, I mean, this team, they like the receivers, but they don't sit there and covet them. You know, I mean, like some of these, like the Rams. I mean, the Rams, you know, they love themselves some receivers, you know, whereas Ballard, I feel like using that team basis and stuff, you start giving your quarterback 50 million and your wide receiver 25 million, all of a sudden that salary cap gets really small.
Yeah. Toxic. Hines could be a yak guy, but Deebo is a mega yak guy. And it is true. It is true. I like where this question comes from. 0194D. If we got Deebo, how far back does that push us getting a wide receiver in the draft? The 4th, the 5th? I still say that they could legitimately get a wide receiver in the 2nd, the very first pick that you have in the draft. It's still, at that point, it's still, in my opinion, a BPA pick. Because this team is very well-rounded. We are shorter on the offense than we are on defense. I think our defense is about, you know, as top-notch as it could possibly be right now. But we could still go get a receiver. We could get a tight end. We could get offensive line, whatever. I would still we don't need a long snapper.
Yeah. And to follow up on that, I mean, you guys got to remember Paris Campbell's in the last year of his contract, you know what I mean? So even if he is successful, you know, do the Colts sit there and say, okay, nope, 1 year is all we needed to see from you and re-sign him? Or do they sit there and move on like they did with Kamoko Toure, you know what I mean? And then like, you know, there just wasn't enough there for us to offer you that big contract.
Nomadic Brian in here, I don't expect the Deebo trade. And you know what? I don't expect it either, but it's really weird when all the betting companies have the Colts as either the number 1 or number 2 listing. Because I'm telling you, betting companies like Bet Online and Bet US and all these other places that you could go to, they're not in the habit of losing money. All right. They're in the habit of making money. So there's a reason why they have that listed there. And, you know, it's still possible. I don't expect it, but I'm not counting it out.
I have to click on one here real quick from Brandon Wood without the S. You know, he says people are giving Deebo, you know, getting mad at Deebo because he's trying to treat this thing like a business and he's looking at his long-term investment, and that's himself, but yet why is it players can't do that, but owners can do it all the time? And the fan base just seems to be, not the fan base, but just the fan of the game. People just seem to not look at it. It's a business whenever it comes from the owner's point of view, but whenever it comes from the player's point of view, they want them to take these team-friendly deals. They always want them to take, why is it frowned upon when the player treats it like a business equally?
Well, and that's the thing. Okay, so like wide receivers don't want to be running backs, okay, because they take a pounding and it lessens it, and they're not built for that. Deebo's a big dude, but he's still not built as a running back. He wants to be a wide receiver, and I get that. There's a reason why running backs want fed. There's a reason why that is, because they want their numbers as high as possible so that their very first contract is as big as it possibly can be, because they know that that's probably the only extended contract that they're going to have. So they're trying to make their money as quick as possible. Whereas wide receivers know that they can, last a little longer, just keep getting more and more money. So, I do not at all blame Deebo for wanting to make this move.
Mm-hmm.
JDW says, just waiting for that Colts wall shirt to come in. I hope you enjoy it when it does. Toxic says Deebo's running backs like style would reduce the need for a high end tight end, and in a way it would. But you got to remember, Deebo played alongside. Deebo might not have been the best player on that offense. George Kittle is right there too, and he played with him. And Kittle's a bad man. All right, so you put those two guys together, and wow, it's just like I think having Deebo and Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor together would be a pretty massive wow, right?
Yeah. And something else I don't know if this factors in, but do you think that, you see the questions that San Francisco has at the quarterback position? Trey Lance is unproven. Jimmy G seems like he's on his way out, but he's still there, shoulder. So, is this, and he's doing the right thing. He's not going to throw those guys under the bus or whatever, and say, this is why I don't want out of here. But do you think that could factor into possibly why he's like looking for a different home?
It's possible. He may not like the whole Trey Lance situation. With Trey Lance, they're going to run that game plan a lot like the Ravens, right? They're going to run it a lot like the Ravens, which means Deebo's going to continue doing what he's doing. He don't see on the horizon where he's just going to be a wide receiver. He's going to be running a lot of those trick plays and stuff. So I can understand why he wants out. Question from JDW for you.
Oh, it's a long story, JDW. I'll tell you what, Bubba, I'll hit you up on Twitter and stuff, because the company I got it from, you don't want to deal with them.
Oh, okay. Mr. Popham, assuming we grab one or two wide receivers in the draft, do you also see us signing a veteran receiver after the draft? And if so, who? I could still see the Colts signing a veteran wide receiver, because currently right now, when it comes to starters on the team, and as you say, he's not hurt yet, Paris is the vet.
Yeah.
Paris Campbell's the vet. That's pretty.
No, that's not true anymore. Ask Shindula. I know.
He's a maybe not guy, right?
And I would sit there and say that the second name or third name, Jarvis, there, I don't think that that's an option, just because if the Colts were to bring in a vet, I think it would be on a lower end contract, and I don't
currently right now,
I don't see Jarvis being interested in coming to the Colts for a $5-6 million a year type of contract.
Yeah, I could see re-signing Ty. I don't expect it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, especially, I could see a Julio on a really cheap deal. I could see OBJ on a really cheap deal. In all honesty, even I've said this multiple times. I'm not saying expect it. I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah. Shout out to Zach Kiefer also from The Athletic. I was reading an article today saying that there is still a lot of interest in the Colts in the TY. You know, I mean, they're just letting TY run his course and turn over all his stones and then see if he still has interest. So from the way I gathered it, there's already an offer on the table. It's just, hey, do you want to do this?
Yeah. Have a good one, JDW. Yeah, they've thrown the offer out there for a while. They've known it. Ballard said at the beginning of the year that the Colts would love to have him back, and they gave him an offer. So, you know, it's basically up to TY at this point on what he wants to do. Hirsch talking about, hey, you know, Deebo's not the only guy out there that's not happy where he's at. The Colts could go get Terry McLaurin from their Commanders that are having issues right now with, you know, ownership and all that other neat stuff and all this crazy stuff that's going on over there. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I honestly don't know what Washington would want for Terry. I really don't. I like Terry McLaurin. I don't think he's Deebo Samuel. I think he's that tier below, if you get what I'm saying.
Okay. But is that because of Deebo and his doing the running back and all that, or is it so just as a receiver? You think
as a receiver? Yes.
Okay.
Oh, now Terry is great as a receiver, but he's more of a kind of do it all receiver. He's really good at everything, but not super exceptional at one thing. You get what I'm saying? He's do it all type kind of guy. Whereas like Michael Pittman is really exceptional at one thing. So you don't need a guy that is going to go out there and do those, you know, 50-50 type things, you know, because that's what he's exceptional at. Deebo is the opposite end. You're not throwing Deebo 50-50 balls. Okay. You're not doing it. You're going to give him the ball in space, lead him in space, and hope that he could just do something with it afterwards. Terry could do both of those things. Maybe not as a high level as one or the other, but he could do it all pretty well. So I like Terry McLaurin. I do. But if the price was the same for both, I'd rather have Deebo at this point than Terry, because of the fact that he is exceptional at one thing. And it's hard to get those game-changing, exceptional abilities out of players, you know? Super Mexi Melt says 33 people in here, only 17 likes. Bad people. Bad. Guys, smash that like button for me, guys. I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm not getting into the draft. There's only 1 week left till the draft before it starts because it's Thursday. Woohoo! All right. Yes, I'm wearing a t-shirt today. All right. It's hot as hell outside. And in here, it's like burning fire. Let's go. Blue Bleeder, hey, what's up, man? Says, what up, LO and Loyalist? Finally catching a live broadcast. Glad you could make it, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Welcome. I got this one for Scholar Young that's just, you know, basically saying a lot of what we were saying, you know, Deebo, you know, and the Niners aren't going to let him go cheap. Niners look at Deebo differently than the outside teams trying to get Deebo. You know what I mean? And yeah, I just, for me, it's not that I think Ballard's too cheap or anything. I just think that where he puts the wide receiver in his mindset, I mean, you know, right now the Niners are looking at him like Ballard does at his defensive end position. You know, it's like he sees that spot and gets salivating and stuff.
Well, I want to say one thing, Skylar and Kirsten. It is the end of his rookie contract. This year is the last year of his rookie contract. If Deebo says, trade me or else I will sit out and then go to whoever the hell I want next year, they will trade him and at least get something for him. You know, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's no reason to sit on him and get nothing for him.
Yeah. What now? If he doesn't play, doesn't that year still stay? Doesn't he still owe that year?
He don't get paid for that year.
Right, but I thought he
But
also still had a year on his contract if he doesn't play that year.
I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
Only on no, I don't think that's the case at all. Because people could have complete injury situations. You get what I'm saying? Where you're injured for the entire year. It's not like the contract moves on, you know.
Right, but at least there you fulfilled your obligation. You reported to the team and stuff. And I was thinking that's what they ended up doing with Le'Veon was, that they basically pushed that year, so they still had him under a contract for that last year.
Well, I know that that's what they're saying, that he didn't get traded. He just signed, didn't he? Le'Veon did.
Old memory. I'll be honest. That's why I was like trying to refresh.
Okay. Brandon says we might as well suit up old 87. Don't say that to his face. Suiting him up, that's fine. Don't use the O word. All right. Blue Bleeder says I do want Ty to get his 10K yards. He's like what, 400 yards off of it or something like that. So I get it. I would draft Christian Watson as a new partner for Pittman. Okay. I don't know who, let's see.
Another taller, but he's got speed to go with him and stuff.
Okay.
And, he's got a problem with that this is my take, obviously, is he's got the dropsies. He's, shown that he has been willing to drop more passes than I think I would desire at pick 42 at least.
I get you. Nomadic says the Niners would love to get even with the Buckner trade. How can we stick it to the Colts? There are actual Niners fans out there that think that they got one over on us. Mm-hmm. That, they got a first round pick and did not have to pay him $21 million a year, and that Ballard was stupid for doing it. Okay. I don't get where they're seeing that, because Buckner has been, because they're looking at the stats and going, well, he don't even get double digit sacks. He does a lot more than just gets pressures and sacks. I'll tell you that. Right. Well,
and that plus let's be honest, their defensive line, because of the draft pick that they got and because of the people they already had. I mean, they didn't need Defoe as bad as the Colts needed Defoe in their organization. Mm-hmm. So my guess, what I'm saying is they didn't feel the loss of Defoe as much as if we were to lose him now, how that would feel.
So next week when I have Reggie on the show and we talk, I'm going to bring this up. Okay. I'm just going to let you know, Brandon. Now I got him worried because he thinks Reggie's going to be on the show next week, and it's possible because I get interviews. All right. All right, guys, man, there's 46 of you in here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I think we're going to end it a little early tonight because we do have a Patreon tonight. Thank you all for showing up and giving us your attention in here. What's up, DJ Abcool? Appreciate you being in here. We're doing great, but we're getting ready to do our Patreon, so we kind of a little bit of refresh. I want to eat something before we get going, because you know me, I don't eat until like 8 o'clock or some crap anyhow, every stinking day. But let me know in the comments after this is over what you think. How much do you think the Niners would be willing to give up for Deebo? And whether or not you think the Colts have what it takes to get him, or even if you want them, Chris Ballard, to make that move. Appreciate each and every one of you. Any last words?
I'd just like to say congratulations to Uncle Phil. He's being inducted into the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame. First of hopefully a couple Hall of Fames that he gets inducted into. But other than that, like I said, guys, $5 a month, you can be part of the conversation. You can be on screen, or ask Nomadic Brian. You can be behind the screen, whatever you guys want to do, and just join in the conversation.
You are so wrong for that, Brandon. You are so wrong for that. All right. I'm just going to say, all right. I am going, this is going up on Twitter, dude. Put it on Twitter. All right.
Add a big S at the end of his name.
Right. All right. All right, guys. I'll see you toxic on Patreon. I'll see each and every one of you on Patreon. Brandon, you're coming to Patreon. I know you are, because we are going to talk about this, my guy. I'm getting up there. I'm older than Reggie, so you're kind of, you know what you're saying about me? Uh-huh. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining. Have a good one. Until next time. Again, have a good one.
Just because a player's not a household name doesn't mean we can't make him a household name.
How many yards would Deebo Samuel get with Matt Ryan throwing him the football?
You need a bigger tape measure.